Check 1, 2, 3.
Hello, and welcome to the All Things Narrative Podcast, where we explore the relationships between the stories we love and the stories we live. I'm your host, Derrick Hatch, and let's get started. Welcome to the happiest place on earth, the All Things Narrative Podcast. Yay!
The Empire.
Well, that's actually kind of fitting.
Yeah.
Order in the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. So, you obviously heard Joe and Jason in the house, so we got them back. We got Nick back in the house as well.
I'm back. I don't really know how to do this, but I'm here.
Yeah, we got Claudia in the house.
What's Claudia.
Longtime friend of all of us here. And, you know, I felt weird about doing a Disney episode without a woman here because we're going to be talking a lot about princesses and stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, if you are enjoying this episode or if you have been listening and you think this is a pretty cool podcast, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We'd also love reviews as well. So if you can leave a review, just let us know what you think. That would be awesome because that really helps get the podcast out there and help spread the word. So thank you all so much. And let's jump into this. This quote-unquote brief history that we always start off with is hard because Disney has been around for nearly 100 years. Actually, next year it'll be 100 years.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. So it was founded in 1923 by Walt and Roy Disney. They were originally part of another studio that went bankrupt, but they produced these little shorts that featured like these live action and animated renderings of like Alice in Wonderland. Like these little shorts. They created, Walt and Roy created this character. You guys ever heard of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland?
No.
No?
That's like the
No.
long Mickey Mouse before Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, it
right?
was Mickey before Mickey.
Yeah.
Before they made him commercially palatable.
Well, it's
was a good
interesting
word.
because they made Oswald and he was doing really well for years, but you know, at the time, the copyright for that character was owned by Universal Studios. And so when they realized that Universal owned the character that they created, that they were kind of like, oops, what do we do now? And that led to the creation of Mickey Mouse.
Just because they didn't want to get sued. That's cool.
Well, and wanting to be able to do what you want with the character.
Yeah.
And so they created that short Steamboat Willie, which was the first animated film with sound, you know? And that blew up. That did incredibly well. And that the little shorts that they produced that were in theaters, you know, because they didn't have TV, so you had to go to the theater to see it. That eventually led to them being ambitious enough to want to make an entire animated film, which, you know, they were laughed at for doing because animation was not viewed as a medium of film. And the idea of creating a full-length 80, 90-minute film, that just was unheard of at the time. But nonetheless, you know, Disney jumps into it. He puts everything he has into that film. They even invent an entirely new type of camera called the multiplane camera, which that's the camera that allows the cells and the different layers of backgrounds and stuff to all be captured. So they create new technology just to do this. And, you know, despite all the critics, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs comes out. And it's the biggest film of all time.
Oh, that was their first?
That was their first film,
I didn't know that.
1937, I think. And that was, I think, the highest grossing film ever made at that point.
Wow.
It just blew up. People loved it. And even like right there in that movie, you see a lot of what Disney would go on to do. You know, you see the princess theme, you see the great villains, you see the songs, you know, of course, adapting fairy tales, which we'll talk about fairy tales today. It's all there in the first film. And it's very much a part of their DNA. And I don't know did you ever, Joe, when you lived in California, did you ever drive through Burbank a lot?
Yes.
So have you ever driven by Walt Disney Studios?
No.
So when you drive by Walt Disney Studios,
know,
you
trash.
can't go inside, obviously. But when you drive by it,
pretty trash.
the front of it, it's actually the Seven Dwarfs, because they built that studio based on the success of that movie. So they took the success of Snow White and they just poured that in to building their company. And then they released Pinocchio, which is their second film. And Pinocchio is like a critical success. So they did incredibly well.
I don't even know what Pinocchio's about.
Oh my gosh, really? You've never seen Pinocchio?
I have, but I know he lies, but I can't remember the story that well.
Okay, we'll talk about
That's
it.
the
We
whole
got
story.
It's horrifying. That movie's
Smoking ruins
horrifying.
your life. That's
Smoking
what
ruins your.
High-key.
That's one thing you could take from it.
Turns you to a jackass.
Hey guys, language. We might have kids listening.
Oh yeah, fair.
But no, that's true. That is baked into the movie. Absolutely. Pinocchio's brilliant. It's a masterpiece. But anyways,
Jason was hating on it on the way over here.
really?
He's like, this
I was
number
hating
one,
on it.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Really?
They put it on like number 1, number 2 on the list. I didn't agree with that. I didn't say it was
Oh,
bad.
Pinocchio's phenomenal. Phenomenal story.
Okay, I don't know about number
Storytelling,
1. But we'll get to that.
animation,
Yeah,
everything.
We'll get there.
But anyways, so then Disney wanted to experiment, and they created a film called Fantasia, which
yeah,
put
that was great.
sound to music, and I'll talk about that later. But it was a huge failure. It was a huge failure, and people hated it. Oh, they
Really?
despised it. It didn't make anybody. Kids didn't like it. Adults didn't like it. They lost so much money on it. But here's the thing: the good thing that came out of Fantasia that's amazing. Because of the sound of how they wanted to do the sound with the music and stuff, they invented what eventually became surround sound. They called it Fantasound at the time. But that eventually, that technology is what leads to surround sound. So Walt Disney and his team invented surround sound. So every time you go to a theater, you can thank Fantasia for that. And then they make Dumbo that just exists to make money. Like they lost so much money. That's the only reason why that movie was made.
That's
And
another
then-
wild movie. That
right?
is horrifying.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
the nightmare sequence and
Yep.
all that. Yeah.
Pink elephant.
Yeah, pink elephants.
I had nightmares from that.
And yeah.
Like straight up
Really liked
nightmares.
that scene.
and
Says a lot about you.
and then finally they make Bambi, which has talking animals. So that's like the golden age. And the reason why I spent time talking about those individual films is because in their first movies, you see everything Disney will do moving forward. You see princesses and fairy tales and musicals. You see movies that exist just to make money, like Dumbo. You see experiments like Fantasia, and you see cute stuff like Bambi. That about covers all of what Disney is going to do, right?
Yeah.
Like when you look at all that. So, then in the 40s, they get contracted by the government to make propaganda films. If you have not seen those films, you gotta see them. They're nuts. Like Disney animations with Hitler and stuff in them.
No.
Like and
That's
Nazis.
not a movie.
No,
I think I've seen
they're
one. Is it-
shorts where like Donald Duck is working for the Nazis and stuff.
Yeah, no, I've seen
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
Even Bugs
Where-
Bunny?
where can
We
we
had
find
to
it?
watch
I think
those in
YouTube,
school,
right? Yeah.
As a history lesson.
I think you can find them on YouTube.
The U.S. government, because Disney was so in debt because their movies were doing so poorly, that the government bailed them out of their debt and said, in return, you're going to make these wartime propaganda films that we're going to show to our soldiers and to people, So Disney was huge in getting America over like the public interest in World War II.
Dang, Disney and Captain America.
So yeah, and then of course after the war they head into the Silver Age, which is where a lot of people think that that's some of their best stuff. That's where they kind of really get their formula down. They focus more on their brand, on story. The animation really peaks there with things like Sleeping Beauty. That goes through the 60s, and then Walt Disney dies in 1966, right as he opens Disneyland. So that was kind of like his big final thing he was working towards was Disneyland and eventually what would become Disney World. He dies and this company struggles for a long time. They basically go through the trash bin of like rejected ideas Disney had. That's like what like Robin Hood and stuff like that are in the 70s. They're like these kind of rejected concepts he had. But a lot of those movies in the 70s and 80s did not do super well. And the company almost goes bankrupt, kind of like Marvel, They almost go down to nothing. And then they get saved when a group decides to pitch this idea for adapting Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, The Little Mermaid. And this was in 1989, and that movie saves Disney. It's also the final Disney movie that is completely hand-drawn. From after Little Mermaid on, they will start slowly incorporating computer animation into their 2D hand-drawn films. So Little Mermaid is a huge success. This begins their Renaissance age in the 90s, which is where we all grew up. And we're not going to really take time to say like how we first were introduced to Disney, because I'm just assuming we all were as kids, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and on the VCR tapes, right, Jason?
Yep, them big old rectangles.
Yep, I got a couple rectangles right there on the VHS. So the Renaissance age, they go back to fairy tales, but they incorporate like musical theater. So they get like Tim Rice, Alan Menken, these people who actually wrote plays and musicals for Broadway, and they come in and they help write the Disney movies, and they do the songs and all that stuff. And then once Pixar starts going, so Pixar, did you guys know that Pixar started off as a part of Lucasfilm?
No.
No, I did
To
not.
go back to our Star Wars episode,
Everything ties
the
into Star
early
Wars.
ideas of what Pixar became, it was a group of people who said, hey, we think we could do something with like computer and animation. And George Lucas looked at them and said, yeah, you can come join my team. So you could thank George Lucas for, what eventually becomes Pixar, because he really pours into this group. He allows them to have some creativity and get to experiment. And then in, I think, 1986, after the original trilogy's over, they've done some stuff with Lucasfilm, they kind of want to go off on their own, and Lucas kind of blesses that. They go off, and that's when John Lasseter, really starts to take Pixar and make it the company. And they make some really bad CG. If you go look online, you could see their early stuff. It's pretty horrendous. But they're trying to figure it out, And Steve Jobs, when he invests in Pixar, that really helps them as a company. And then when they get a deal with Disney, and they produce Toy Story together. So from 1995 to about 2006, Pixar is a separate studio that works alongside Disney as a partner. And they really have a very hit or miss relationship. But then Disney buys Pixar, and everybody lives happily ever after.
Yeah.
So then Pixar, becomes
just dominates
so yeah. So
Now we're happy.
Yeah.
That's the real empire.
but what was happening in the mid 2000s was that Disney was struggling again with their 2D animation. And so they actually hire Pixar's team to take over Disney animation. And that eventually leads to a film called Tangled in 2010. And Tangled is a huge success.
I love Tangled.
And I know, right? And from Tangled on, you'll see that the lines between Pixar and Disney are kind of blurred in terms of who's working on the movies. Because like you got John Lasseter, who's like from Pixar, but he's also the president of Disney Studios Animation as well. So it gets really murky at that point. But yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about, and then that leads to what they call the revival age now, where Disney's back, and Disney and Pixar are both making things. So, but yeah, any thoughts on what we shared in the history?
I feel like growing up, I always sensed a little animosity between Pixar and Disney. Like they were two separate capitals, not wanting
Right.
to be friends.
I never felt that tension.
Yeah, I didn't know
I didn't know
they liked
that.
each other.
Yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
know that like they were separate companies until like later in life.
Yeah, and they were partners because Disney was the distributor. They were basically like, we'll put the movies out for you and you make the movies. But yeah, if you go like behind the scenes and just read all the drama that was happening between them, yeah, even like Toy Story 2, because that was like the third Pixar film, I think. And even I think there was a lot of tension of like, should we do a sequel? Should we not do a sequel? And, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so if we're good on the history, now that we've kind of got a little bit of a gist of it, and Disney, it's interesting because we have this kind of theme with Marvel and Star Wars and all that, of just how these are companies that they didn't always look as successful as they were today. And Walt Disney, I got to give the guy props for all his faults for wanting to push.
Yeah.
He wanted to push really hard his team, and he wanted to push what you could do in film. And Walt Disney, and I still stand by this and love this when he says this, is just that like our films should be made for everyone to enjoy. Disney was not a company that was created to cater to kids. It was created for everybody. It was something that a parent and a child could sit and watch together and enjoy. I do think that's changed, at various points in their history. But that was the idea. And Pixar also carried that idea as well. And I think that's when those studios are at their best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see that with a lot of movies that are coming out today. I definitely see that. Because clearly we're a bunch of adults sitting here talking about Pixar movies. They're clearly, and Disney movies, they're clearly still doing that.
Right. Yeah. And that's what we're going to get into. So instead of talking about like the mythology with Disney, you really got to talk about fairy tales, so a little bit of a different direction. But, fairy tales have been around for hundreds of years. They're constantly being reshaped and edited in cultures. People like the Grimm's brothers collected fairy tales and put them all together in compilations. Other people like Hans Christian Andersen invented new fairy tales for their time. But yeah, they were, designed to, they were actually told orally, and they actually came a lot from mothers.
Really?
Yes.
But they're so dark.
Yes.
That's so interesting.
Read the Brothers Grimm. It doesn't end well.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Yeah. They were very dark. They eventually became to, have morality and bring, those dangers of don't go into the woods alone, kids, that type of stuff in
Or
there.
some witch is going to turn you into food and eat you. That's so wild.
Derrick, how would you define fairy tale? What would you say a fairy tale is?
I have a feeling you have a definition.
No, I don't. I just, because fairy tale and fantasy is different, right? Or no?
The lines are very blurry. That's a great point, because fairy tales are almost a form of fantasy, like within the fantasy genre. Fairy tales, though, I feel like they tend to be shorter than like when we think of fantasy, we tend to think like Lord of the Rings and Narnia, like these longer stories. And fairy tales tend to be more like short stories within the fantasy genre.
Would you say the Pixar, those are fairy tales or fantasy?
Well, I heard one person saying, tell me what you guys think of this, that they said the difference between Disney and Pixar in their storytelling is that Disney's storytelling, it's always about once upon a time. It's always founded on this idea of once upon a time.
That's more like the fairy tale.
Yes, and Pixar is more of this idea of what if. Like, what if your toys came alive? What if we could see a fish's perspective?
What if our voices or the thoughts in our heads are actual? Okay. Okay.
That's very much Pixar's.
What if we put balloons on a house?
And just left everything behind.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
I like that story.
I can't wait to get to up.
Yes. But yeah, that's essentially, so Pixar, it's funny because Pixar kind of is like a modern fairy tale, but I don't know. When I watch it, we've all been watching a lot of Disney and Pixar films in the last few weeks. There is something that feels different about them.
Yeah.
Like when you watch them, like watching something like Sleeping Beauty or Aladdin or Lion King or Moana or Tangled. It doesn't feel quite the same as watching something like WALL-E or Up and it's hard. I'm trying to put my finger on what it is, but you know what I mean?
It's like a closed story. Like, I think stories like Moana, all those, they have a distinguished end instead of like the world of WALL-E. You wonder what's all going to happen because they built this whole world around it. But Moana could just be Hawaii like 20 years ago if the world was like that.
There's not a lot of Disney animated films that actually take place in modern day. Whereas I feel like a lot of Pixar films do tend to take place more recently, right? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, would that be like the once upon a time aspect, maybe?
Yeah, like the sense of time. Because a lot of Disney stuff, it's kind of like I watch it and I'm like, oh, this could be hundreds of years ago, or I'm not quite sure when the time is in it. But yeah, in terms of the storytelling, these fairy tales, though, obviously they would tell the fairy tales to their kids, to help form their character. And I think, if Disney is our modern fairy tales, then that means that there's a good chance that what you're showing is having an influence and forming kids, right?
So would you? Yeah. So would you say that fairy tales are more like intentfully moral?
Yeah, no, that is the function that we understand them as. There usually is a moral. but it's still a moral that's in a story, right? It's not message over story.
Yeah.
It's story with a message. And there's a difference.
Yeah.
And I'd argue that there's some Disney films that come out today that are message over story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about. Yeah. I mean, I have kids. So it's like,
You have kids?
They're watching Moana as we speak.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. So that is something that's interesting to think about is my kids are in the other room and they are being influenced right now by the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, Addie loves Ariel and wants to be like Ariel. You know, she thinks Ariel's the coolest. And so it's like, you know, and they put on clothes and they pretend, you know? And so it's very, you know, as a parent here, it's very interesting to think about, you know, what am I going to allow to influence my children?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to show my kids like all stuff from Disney and Pixar,
Yeah.
you know?
It's
So-
like what you and Nick have said before. It's what are the stories that, you know, matter to us? What are the stories that we feel are meaningful to us? You know? Yeah.
Nick, I feel like you got something.
I'm trying to figure out a way to get this in, but
Get it in.
No, there might be a better time for it.
I have to.
You can just edit it into
I
any
just have
spot.
to go slow sometimes. That's all. But
What needs to be said will be said.
Derek, I took this book off your bookshelf, this C.S. Lewis book.
Yeah.
And he has a couple of chapters on story, but he says, speaking of stories that are going to hurt us, he's talking about fantasy and fairy tales versus realistic stories. And he says, it is accused of giving children a false impression of the world they live in, but I think no literature that children could read gives them less of a false impression than fantasy. I think what professes to be realistic stories for children are far more likely to deceive them. I never expected the real world to be like fairy tales. I think that I did expect school to be like the school stories. The fantasies did not deceive me. The school stories did.
Yeah. Dang, that's true, Hike. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just leave it to Lewis.
Yeah. No, I love how he puts that.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I love that because this comes down to a deeper idea that I think you're touching on, and it's that like, oh, well, it's just silly kid stuff. It's just fiction. It's just and I'm like, no, guys. Sometimes when we watch, you know, fiction, it could be more true than something that's trying to be realistic or trying to tell you like this is how it is. Because a good story, no matter how fictional, no matter how fantasy, like in that realm it is. A good story will be what Robert McKee calls capital T true. You know, like it may not have truly taken place, but it's true in what it says about reality and being human and life and the world and all that.
What he also argues is that fantasy or fairy tales are not just for kids. It's just a genre that best tells the story that's trying to be told.
Yes.
And so they are for adults and children, which is what Disney was trying to do.
Yeah.
But he says if a children's story is not enjoyed by adults, then it's not a good children's story.
If it is enjoyed,
If
it's not enjoyed. Yeah.
by the adults,
I agree with
then
that.
it's not a good children's story.
I agree with that. And I like, and it reminds me of like, well, Walt Disney like even had a philosophy too, like with his stories. And I do think when he dies, this philosophy also goes for the most part. We can go dark. We can take it dark. I believe that kids are capable of handling it just as long as you give them some resolution. You know, because kids need a sense of resolution. You know, some of the early Disney films, as we mentioned, were incredibly dark at times, you know, because he did not want to talk down with kids about the reality and the harshness of life and the world, you know. Of course, there's moments like in Bambi where Bambi's mom dies, and then the few seconds later, la 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 la, and I'm just like, no. But they get better. They do get better. Like Lion King is a great example of like when Mufasa dies and Simba's there, like trying to wake him up, and you know, and I'm just like. And we're just letting that sit, you know. And yeah, we do get to the silly Kuna Matata
song after,
but we take their pacing gets better, you know. So I like that, and I think that, you know, if parent, like for me, this as a parent, if I'm not going to enjoy it, I'm probably not going to put it on for my kids.
Yeah.
Like if they're like, oh, can we watch that? And I'm just inside like,
No.
Can we watch Cars? No. Can we watch Chicken Little? No.
What?
I told you, yes, it is
What?
not. Chicken Little is not.
What?
Everybody
Chicken-
listening to this podcast,
Chicken-
it is not a good movie.
Chicken Little is the
Lies.
worst Disney
Lies.
movie.
Yes.
Worst
Oh
Disney
my
movie.
gosh,
It's-
really?
It's at the
Car-
bottom.
Cars
That
is the
father and
bottom
son
of Pixar,
listen,
and
that
Chicken
father and son
Little-
relationship, bro, gets
Chicken
me every
Little
time. I
is
watched
a
it recently with my
bad
kids in
movie.
class.
Bad
I
movie.
cried.
Bad animation.
I
bro.
like
Bad
that.
every
Whatever,
movie,
bro.
I like it
bad
too.
Whatever,
adult
bro.
movie.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
movie.
thank you.
That's good.
You know what? Stay over there on that
and
side.
Treasure Planet.
And Treasure Planet. You guys just have bad taste.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything about
You
Treasure
like
Planet.
Last Jedi.
No.
And you like Rise of Skywalker
I don't like Rise of Sky.
over Last Jedi.
No, I didn't. It was on the bottom of my ranking.
Oh, okay.
You're
Joe,
almost
yeah, I
right.
was
Joe,
almost-
you like Last Jedi too, Joe.
I do. I do like Last Jedi.
Yeah. Chicken Little is the worst.
Oh my gosh.
Moving
Whatever.
on.
Whatever.
You could-
get
maybe
to it.
you'll pick that for your underrated, but
We'll get to
You can
that.
have that on
yeah.
Dinosaur.
Perfectly rated at 30-something% on
Bro.
Rotten Tomatoes.
and it well deserved. It should have gotten a 0.
Oh my gosh. My whole heart.
But yeah, but as a parent though, like, you know, I think about that too. Is like, well, I have to sit here for 90 minutes. I might as well get something that I can enjoy, you know? Like Raya and the Last Dragon, that was a recent Disney movie that came out that I was like, wow, I really enjoyed this because it's like it's a story about trust, you know? And I was like, it's very important for kids are learning to trust, you know, who to trust and how to do that. And as adults, you know, we can often be jaded about trusting others. And that was a great movie about that, you know, and that's where somewhere I could look at that and like, you know, that's what the best of these movies do is they could challenge the whole audience itself. So Nick, did you have anything else that you were going to read from Lewis or about fairy tales or
Yeah,
anything?
when we get to Up.
When we get to Up? Okay, great.
It's going to help explain what I
Yeah.
feel.
Anything else
when
you
I
guys
see that
want
House of
to
Balloons.
add about? Bet.
I love that House of Balloons. I can't wait to talk about it.
So, is there anything else you guys want to share about like the fairy tale aspect, the morals, the storytelling itself, before we start talking into specific stories with Disney?
I'm personally good.
Yeah.
Okay, great,
I'm trying to hop in.
awesome.
Do it.
So before we keep going with this episode and this conversation, there's something really cool I want to acknowledge here, and that's that you, Claudia, you've been a part of my workshops before.
Yeah, I have.
So, could you? I mean, I want to take advantage of this if you don't mind. Could you take a second and just maybe share a little bit about your experience being a part of the Live a Meaningful Story workshop?
Sure. So I was a part of a workshop this past fall. It was roughly 6 weeks long, and it was me and a few other coworkers helping Derrick create this workshop and get it off the ground, off of a rough draft. We learned different key things about our own personal stories in our lives. Things about different themes that have carried through the years in our life, different characters, different people that have been involved, how different things have affected us, and even like being able to look forward of how we can live a meaningful story from our own life stories. And that was really cool to experience.
Yeah. So, you know, Claudia and that whole group, you know, you guys were my first young adult workshop, and you really helped me make this workshop what it is now. You know, your ideas, your input, it was so valuable, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, you know, if somebody was thinking about joining, you know, doing this workshop, what would they get out of it?
I think for me, so I'm a big verbal processor. It's helpful for me to share things with other people, to hear myself say things out loud. So I would say if you've experienced a lot of things in your life and you want to get a better grapple for like what has happened, what's currently happening, what do you want to happen, I think anyone interested in just having a better grasp on what their life has been and what they want it to be, they would just get a lot of just very valuable input and tools from the workshop.
Yeah. So awesome. So feel free to check out allthingsnarrative.com, and you could learn more about the Live a Meaningful Story workshop. You could see Claudia's lovely testimonial there as well on the website. You can book the Live a Meaningful Story workshop for whatever group that you are a part of. And so, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to share that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You ready to keep talking about Disney and Pixar?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, here we go. All right, so we're gonna kind of do this a little differently. So there's way too much material to talk about here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically talk about like our favorite Disney and Pixar films, the ones that we maybe think are the worst, or the ones that maybe we have a mixed thoughts on, and then we'll talk about our most overrated and underrated, and then that'll lead to our rankings there. Okay, so we'll just kind of go around. So who wants to start with like a favorite? It could be Disney or Pixar. Joe, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. Oh, sorry. Say it again.
Like a favorite Disney or Pixar film.
So, this kind of brings me back to like one of my first like Disney movies. I think it's Disney or Pixar, The Brave Little Toaster. I don't know.
Oh my gosh!
I grew up with Brave Little
I
Toaster.
love
All
that
of
Brave
them.
Little Toaster. It is Disney. Yes.
You never
good.
watched Brave Little Toaster?
No,
It's
I'm interested.
It is such a
gosh.
great story. It's about these
happy you
items
said
that
that.
have been left behind by a family, and it's like Toy Story. They want their owner back. It's like a toaster, it's a vacuum, it's a blanket,
blankie, a radio.
a radio and
Yeah.
a lamp, and they're all just on this adventure trying to find their kid again. And they go through a whole bunch of different like this journey and stuff like that. It's a really good movie, and I almost cried in that movie too. I know I'm probably going to say that a lot, but yeah, that one was like, I can watch this when I was a kid. I can watch this any time, any day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that and Aladdin.
Goes to Mars.
Here.
They go to Mars. There's three of them. They go to Mars. And
Well, you're
third
talking about
one.
the original one, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the
I'm going to
original
go
one.
after you because of what you just said a moment ago. I'll go next.
Okay.
But Brave Little Toaster, what I love about that movie is I love that it is very, kid friendly, but man, it does not talk down to kids at all.
Yeah, there's this one scene where there's a fire, like the toaster's imagining like a fire in the house, and there's a scary clown. I'm like, whoa! Like they get really good with the animation in that. Like
The animation, yeah.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even like a theatrical film, I don't think. I think that
Really?
was like a directed video or TV or something. It's phenomenal though.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is the whole idea of the movie is that the world can be a harsh place because they're leaving the comforts of what they know and they have to go travel into the unknown, right?
Yeah.
And the world can be a harsh place, but it's worth the journey for the people you love.
Yeah,
And that's a beautiful story. So
hits you right in the feels.
it does hit you,
Yeah, it
especially
hits you in
with
the
the
feels.
ending,
Yeah.
know? And just the poor little toaster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start crying.
Why does he have two levers? That makes no sense. I'm looking at this now. Design wise, I don't like this movie.
Fantasy.
Just go with
Jason,
it.
you gotta let
It's
go.
fantasy.
It's
Just
fantasy,
let go.
Jason.
You just have
But-
to let go.
Oh my gosh. Nope. Yeah.
told you
Okay. So
go.
Brave Little Toaster. Anything else that you were going to say on that one?
No, that's pretty
Okay.
much it. Yeah,
I'm going to go next because
Okay.
you said Aladdin.
Yeah.
Aladdin is my pick.
Yeah.
Really?
So-
Aladdin's nice.
Yes. So I love Aladdin. I acknowledge to our listeners that I know there are some problems that movie has in terms of race representation. So I fully acknowledge that is there, and it's a shame that it was there. But in terms of the story of Aladdin, I love it because it's so brilliant. You've got a character who's like forced into this situation where he has to steal and do these things, but then we see that then he gives
He's still selfless.
Yeah, he gives the fruit to those kids, and
Yeah.
it's just like that's like a multi-story, like a multi-layered character right there, And then because the whole movie of Aladdin is about like freedom. It's a movie about how everybody's in some sort of bondage. Aladdin, is restricted by his social class. Jasmine, ironically, is also restricted by her social class. I mean, she literally, in her opening scene, lets out caged birds.
Yeah.
So it's really on the nose. But, Jasmine there's a degree of freedom she wants. The genie obviously is not free. Jafar is in bondage to lust, and that's what his downfall is. Spoilers, by the way, for this podcast.
Jafar is my
Jafar,
my
you have to watch
favorite.
Jafar.
Yeah, right.
Oh
it's
my
my
gosh.
favorite villain.
I'm
Prince
right there with you.
Abu Boo.
Well, one of the things that makes Jafar a great villain compared to a lot of other Disney villains is that Jafar has frequent contact with the protagonist.
Yeah.
If you actually look at a lot of Disney movies, the protagonist and the antagonist hardly ever meet in most of them face to face. They may get like one, like Sleeping Beauty and Maleficent get like a few seconds of screen time together, or Snow White and the Wicked Witch, Queen.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these character dynamics don't get time to develop, but Jafar and Aladdin have so many scenes together where their relationship and their one up, it's genius. Like him as a villain. And the way he's able, he literally takes a serpent, the serpent staff, and uses that to seduce the Sultan and keep him in bondage. It's super on the nose. And then he becomes the serpent, right? He becomes that thing that perpetuates that slavery. And then he becomes the
genie.
slave.
Yeah, he becomes a genie.
It's just such a poetic movie about that. And it's also a movie about trust too, and learning to be yourself, which is very typical Disney thing. Robin Williams is a genie.
Yeah.
It's just, he's so lively, and that performance is still one of the best performances in animation. But yeah, I love it. I have the Sega video game. It's like it was my most frequent rewatch Aladdin, and I think A Whole New World might be my favorite Disney song. Period. It's so beautiful. Well, there's a song. Actually, there's a song from Mulan that might top it. But
what I'll make a man out of you? No. It's the one that we're
it's
going
the one
to.
I sang at karaoke. Were you there that day?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, I sang Mulan for karaoke for you at UII one time.
Which song?
Reflection.
Oh yeah, when she.
Reflection is beautiful. That song gets to me. But yeah, so Aladdin's mine. I'm going to wait and talk about my favorite Pixar film until the end of the podcast when I talk about living a meaningful story. So I'm going to keep you in suspense for that. All right. What about you guys? Favorite Disney Pixar film?
I think I'm ready to go.
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Okay, so I'd say my favorite Pixar film is WALL-E.
Oh,
Like he's a rapper.
Because it's not his name. His name's not Wally Johnson. It's WALLE.
It's an acronym.
Wally.
Say Cool Whip.
A Wally.
Say cool.
Cool.
Say whip.
Whip.
Now say Cool Whip.
WALL-E. WALL-E.
So why I'm actually surprised by that because of some conversations we've had. So
Really?
why WALL-E?
I thought I made that clear. No, I
thought it was going to be Ratatouille because of the whole anyone can cook thing.
I love that, but this is almost like I love it, and I watched it again. I still love it, but WALL-E is a much more bigger message and just a bigger story, and I really love it. And I love how it's told, especially in the beginning, because it's more shown than spoken.
Okay.
Like you see his life, you see the devastation left behind. It's got the happy music, and then it just shows brown earth, which is terrifying.
WALL-E
It's
is a
just
great
brown
example of show versus
and
tell.
gray blue, yes. And the main antagonist of that movie is a physical thing, but it's also a concept. And the main antagonist of this movie is autopilot. And
going on
directive.
autopilot. Yeah.
And it's just going this one path, never deviating, never finding and discovering the joys of life.
Because you're referring how humanity goes on autopilot, lets the world,
that's
get
how
trashed.
everything burns. It's just
That's how everything burns.
the autopilot is sin in our case, but in this movie, WALL-E, those robots have been on the Earth for 700 years?
Yeah, something like
and
crazy
he
like
is
that.
the only unit that we know of that is still alive. And you ask why? What makes it different?
Mm-hmm.
And he is the only one that does not go on autopilot.
Yeah.
Because he deviates. He does his job, so he doesn't deny who he is.
Yes.
He has not denied his identity. He hasn't tried to go against it. He does his job, but it's the things he finds along the way, the things that bring joy, that are funny. And along with that, the thing that he wants the most is unity and friendship, communion, or community.
Yes.
A love interest, because he always watches the
Don't we all?
video of the dancing and also the holding of the hands. But if you see his cargo bay where it's supposed to keep all the WALL-E robots, he fills it with just the things that he finds interesting.
Yeah.
And it is a beautiful romance story because he meets this woman who's completely different than everything he's ever experienced, yet they find commonality in joy and fun. At first, she's just some cold-looking robot that's on a mission, but when she comes into the trailer, everything he's discovered, she puts something new on it, and she shows him a different angle. That he never, the lighter, the light bulbs can light up. she does mess up the VCR. The only
She
crime.
destroyed the VCR.
He fixed it. But it's so cool how they complement each other like that.
Yeah.
And then there's the dancing. I like the movie the whole way through, and the sacrifice at the end, and just how.
Well, there's something very biblical about that ending in the sense of like we have to sacrifice something. There's things we have to sacrifice to make the future better. The sacrifices that they were willing to make to preserve the last bit of life that they had, with the plant.
Yeah.
And then the hope that gave of a plant. I mean, it's obvious symbolism, but for adults, we appreciate it because we know this happens in our world.
Yeah.
And for kids, this is a great way to teach them a lot of these concepts you're mentioning.
And it also shows that it's needed. Like
It's needed
when
to
we
take care of
find that joy that Wally does, it makes no difference if it's kept to ourselves. Like he spreads it. He spreads it to John. He spreads it to the woman, and it knocks them out of their autopilot.
Yes.
And they like start looking at the world around them. They're like, "We have a pool. What's up? Let's hang out." And it knocks the captain off his butt. And he actually steps up on his own 2 feet and takes over the wheel. And that's when the story gets, and when he takes control of his life.
Even that little dirt
Everyone else is-
robot I remember that got off his path and started following Wally. Yeah.
But in the middle of the movie, he does that with all the robots and all the misfit robots too.
And the more that time goes on from that movie, like the stuff where they're in front of screens is like becoming even more chilling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All the screen time they're having, and I'm just like, ooh, this is way worse than it was when it came out.
I like when they're floating in space and he's got the fire
Yes.
extinguisher and the lines are crossing each other.
Yeah.
That's that's probably my favorite
It's
part.
such a good
That's
one.
good. That's just good filmmaking.
Yeah.
And then he's even watching the video about dancing as like it's happened. It's
I was shocked when I first watched Wall-E, and I was like, wow, there's like really no dialogue for a long time.
Yeah.
It's
And I'm like,
amazing.
wow, I'm
Yeah.
really impressed. And that's the thing is like when Pixar like impresses me, they can impress me even more than Disney, That's a great example. Claudia, Nick, who wants to go next?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Nick chose,
All right, Nick
chose
won.
gun.
All right, go Claudia.
All right, so my favorite Disney movie is actually Mulan. And
Yay, somebody's talking about Mulan.
I
I'm so happy.
love
Solid.
Mulan. So fun story, when I was in high school and a sophomore, I had super long hair and I watched Mulan and was inspired and I chopped my hair off.
Really?
Yeah.
That montage.
I
know, right?
love the story of Mulan. She sacrificed for her family, and it's really funny. So I think the stereotypical, as a girl, you love the scene when she gets all of her makeup done, her family takes her, and it's this, she's fulfilling her role as a woman in that time and age, and she is getting ready to get a husband. And then she completely destroys it after that and does a horrible job. And that is my most favorite part of the whole movie.
Mulan is like the type of deconstruction and subversion that I like.
Oh, yeah.
Because what it builds, yeah, I know. What it builds though is it builds an incredibly strong character because Mulan
Took the mic from me.
because what I love about Mulan is that like she is a character that she has a sense of agency. And I think that's something that all the Disney 90s Renaissance films have in common, and why I think we like them so much is they're about characters that are active and they take action despite what others think around them, and that sense of agency that Mulan has. And even though like it acknowledges that she has to step into this other world and it's a struggle for her, but it shows how much she's willing to go through to get it. And it's like there's consequences in Mulan. Like she could save somebody's life, but it also is going to expose her, So it's like there's a lot of just good storytelling in Mulan. But anyways, I'm sorry. I'm just glad you're talking about Mulan.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But anyways, keep going.
Yeah, I love the sacrifice in that movie. And I mean, of course, the love story between her and what's the main character's name? Shang.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's not a traditional like romance either.
Yeah, that of course is a great story in and of itself. And then in the end, people see that Mulan did what needed to be done, and in the end, she saved so many people.
saved China.
Yeah, by stepping out of the box and doing what was morally right, and saving her father's life, and ultimately saving the emperor's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone.
Wow.
Yes.
Mulan is your
Hey Donnie.
Yeah.
not on this episode.
Only the true
So
Only the real viewers will know.
With all that reference.
So is it fair to say then, if Mulan is your favorite of these, is she your favorite Disney princess?
It's a tie between Mulan and Pocahontas.
She's more
Okay.
of a warrior.
Yeah.
So
Why she's the best.
what? This kind of little sidebar here, but I think this might be good to talk about
Yeah.
since we're talking about Mulan and whatnot. So first of all, Mulan is like the least traditional because she's technically not really like a Disney princess. She's kind of like just a nobody who,
Like Ray.
just does the right thing.
Yeah, she did, but she has a sidekick though. She has a dragon.
Yeah,
Every
she
princess
does.
has
and
a
she
sidekick.
sings and all that stuff.
Yeah, she sings.
When you look at Disney princesses, right? What are your, I don't know, like, what are your thoughts? Like, what are the better tier of Disney princesses versus like the lesser tier ones?
I think, okay, so there's a really cool thing with princesses is that you have part of the story in all of them. So you have Cinderella, she has the contrast between she's like a hardworking scullery maid, and then she's a beautiful princess and promoted to living in a castle. All of them have just a different, they work, they're dirty, then they're really pretty, and they're really like pronounced. I don't
Yeah.
know a better word.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think the story sort of destroys itself in that the traditional view of women is that women are really beautiful and women are really pretty and that's all there is. But most Disney stories with a princess have the backstory of what really makes her character stand out, what makes her personality. And it's usually not them getting really dolled up and them getting really pretty. It's them doing things that build character and build
Is it fair
value.
to say that there's a lot of Disney films and princess films out there that really the focus is on the beauty of it? Like
I think
in terms of like, it is your beauty that saves you. It's your beauty that
It was the beauty that killed the beast.
that's actually not what happened.
No, it was the King Kong, guys. Come on.
Well, but there's this idea of like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and
Yeah.
Cinderella, where there are these characters that need, men to come and change their lives, but because they are beautiful, they get that,
I think part of that's true. I think like naturally men and women are attracted to each other, but I think most Disney movies do a good job of adding character and value to whatever princess they are building, whatever character they're building. And then you have the whole other aspect of it where like the animation is really unrealistic and you have different features. Like in the movie Frozen, their eyes are huge and it's this unrealistic portrayal of beauty in what a human looks like. And it's really unrealistic and it doesn't look like how people normally look.
Because I always had like an issue, even though I'm not a woman, but I always had this issue, like even growing up with some stories of just like, oh, they just met and
They are instantly in love and they're going to get married in a month.
But here's why I'm bringing this up though.
I mean,
because-
technically in those movies, they're like teenagers, and that's what teenagers do, just instantly in love. Aladdin and Jasmine were like, I think Jasmine was 13 or 15 or something like that, and Aladdin was 18.
Yeah.
Just instantly,
So
but
first
yeah.
of all, if you talk about age differences, there's some whack age
They're
differences. in
wacky.
some
Oh
movies.
yeah. Oh yeah.
But at least with Aladdin and Jasmine, there is a bond that they share. And that's that whole scene where they're on the rooftop and they're like, sometimes you just feel trapped. Like there are actual bonds in their story that bring them together. But I don't think that's true for all these matches in these movies. But here's why, like as a guy, because we might not like talk about this as much as guys, but that idea really messed with me as a kid. Because I like legit thought that's how the world worked. That's how I thought romance was. Like I thought like there's a pretty girl at my school and if we talk a couple times, we'll go out and then we'll get married one day. Like I know it sounds funny, but that's seriously how my mind was like in second grade, I'd be like, oh, we're going to get married and live happily ever after. And then like when I actually had conflict, like when I got older, I was like I would kind of go like, what's wrong? Like this is because you don't see that in a lot of these stories. You don't see the conflict, except like, which I like when I was in fifth grade, I went to go see the play Into the Woods in a field trip.
I heard that was really terrible actually.
No, Into the Woods is amazing. Because it basically goes with all these fairy tales and it shows that when the story's over, the fairy tale ends, that doesn't mean that life is happily ever after. And Into the Woods was the first like fairy tale like type of story where I was actually challenged to like look at that and be like, oh, so just because I get married, that doesn't mean all my problems go away.
It's like the Shrek franchise because they show it after with the babies and then they have a trouble in their marriage and stuff like that. That's funny, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Shrek is good.
Yeah, Shrek is good.
So I don't know. I bring that up to say that even as a guy, that did something to me growing up with these stories. And I'm trying to teach my daughters a little differently now. That's not necessarily how life works, and the story doesn't always end right when the credits roll, you know? So, yeah, but I bring that up because that stories affect us in that way. And even if we're not careful, we can, because I didn't know that that's what was affecting me, those ideas.
Yeah.
But I realized that they were. So I'm sorry for the tangent, but Claudia, any thoughts on Mulan or fairy tales, princesses, any of this stuff we're talking about?
No, I love the conversation, but no further thoughts right now.
Okay, great.
So what you're saying is then you were deceived by the fantasy story. Going back to the conversation we were having before.
But is it fantasy or is it fairy tale? Sorry, is it fantasy or fairy tale?
I think I took away some of the wrong messages because I don't think those movies are intentionally. Because Walt Disney was married. Obviously, he didn't know. He knew that that's not how life worked. But I think there's unintentional consequences with stories sometimes.
So then, is there value in that fairy tale story where the romance happens all at once, or you don't see all the conflict, but you see this sense of true love? Is that something that should be displayed?
I think it should, but I think there's things that do it better than others. You know, because Aladdin and Jasmine, there's trust. And that's the central part of their conflict. And for any relationship, you need trust. And Tangled is another great movie where I think the romance, again, the age difference is pretty weird. Yep. But this idea of them actually spending time together and actually having to talk through things and have conversation.
Would you say Tarzan and Jane are a good relationship then?
I've only seen Tarzan once, and I'm not like a big fan of the movie, so I can't really like say because I don't know it too well. But would you say that?
I would kind of say just because of the time aspect, you know, they go about it.
Yeah, what's wrong? I almost want to keep that in.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Please.
Can you pause?
That was our niece. That was the niece. So I was saying, yeah, just because of the time that was going throughout it, you know, they got to spend time with each other. But again, sometimes I can understand where you say like it sometimes feels rushed with the relationship. Just automatically we've just met, you know, the day before and now we're just in love.
Yeah.
Are those so just I'm trying to think through this because there must be value to these stories. They're so popular and they do resonate
of course
with us.
There are.
Are they aspirational relationships, like the aspirational hero or character?
Ooh, I never thought of it like that.
Is this an aspirational thing that we look to where love is like this?
I think
in a
so.
sense.
Yeah.
Love is something that is like magical and beautiful, and there are princes, there are kings and queens. You are one. It's not all this is so destructive. We need to see all the fights and the bickering and the conflict resolution.
But
we're going to get enough of that.
Yeah, but there is something pure in falling in love with somebody and just enjoying that pure-hearted love.
I just thought
because that is true as well.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah, I'm glad you're saying that.
I just thought of it and I was like, this is the
good.
Luke form of Star Wars. And what you want is the deconstruction of it. What you really want is the Last Jedi.
No,
Okay,
no, no,
I'm done. I'm done.
Hit him.
I'm taking the mic. Taking the mic back.
No. I think that's good. I'm really glad you brought that up though, because I agree with that. I do think there is an aspirational side in some of these relationships. And again, it's just about like being discerning, you know. I don't know. I think there's just certain Disney movies that I think there's questionable messages that we can all take away. But yeah, I think that aspirational side of it is just as true. I think it's both.
I think one that actually does this pretty well is Frozen. Aspirational. Oh yeah, we just met. Everything lines up, and they're like, no.
Yeah, they
And
have
she's
the really
like,
funny
yeah,
song.
and then it ends up being no. And it deconstructs that and says, yeah, this doesn't always work out, but then the bond and the trust is formed with this other guy it's just filthy ice trader.
Filthy is the word used. But
Yeah,
even
it
then,
is.
they whatchamacallit, at the end, he wasn't even genuine to begin with. He was deceiving her the whole time.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
the aspirational type was broken down as he was deceiving, but the
Right,
one that
right.
was genuine was the guy who
Christoph or
was
something.
Christoph,
Yeah,
who was
Christoph.
with her through the filthiness, through the fight,
Yeah.
through the struggle. He was with her through the hardest times, and
Yeah.
I also liked how it wasn't the romantic interest that saves the day; it was the sisterly bond.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like that was
yeah.
the true
Yeah.
love that.
And-
That
yeah,
They're trying,
wild.
but Frozen does have a big glaring issue that I'll talk about later when I get to my
Overrated.
we'll get there.
I'm really excited to hear about
But
that.
I want to hear about Nick though, because Nick hasn't said his favorite yet.
Nick, we want to hear
it's
about
the
it.
Last Jedi.
We're gonna.
Well, it is a Disney film.
I can make it. I could spin it somehow
It
to make
sure
it work.
called?
is a Disney film.
Ray could be a
There's
Disney princess. Yeah.
Who comes from nothing.
You're nothing.
All right, it's my turn. I want to talk about Up.
All
But
right.
I don't
All
want
right.
to talk about Up's story. I couldn't even really tell you the story. It's about a spirit of adventure. Up for me is not about the story. Up for me is about this house with these balloons that lift up off the ground, and this old man just waves goodbye to everything and goes after what he's longing for.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to figure out why I like this movie so much, because in the middle when I first was
so
watching
excited.
it, the first like half hour, I was like, this is the best Pixar movie. This is better than WALL-E. But then in the middle, I'm like, no, this kind of messes around a little bit.
Yeah.
It starts to fall off. But I'm like, why do I like this movie so much? And so like, it's mostly the imagery of all these colorful balloons in this house. So basically, I took this book off of Derrick's bookshelf, and it's the C.S. Lewis book about story.
Same book.
Yeah, but he says this. He says this about fantasy. He says, Fantasyland arouses a longing for he knows not what. And I think what Up does is just arouse a longing for something not of this world. No matter how good our life is, and I love my life. I love my friends, my job,
Yeah.
my work.
Yeah.
But still,
would be cool
I
to
want
just
balloons
dip.
on
Yeah.
my house, and I just want to go because I don't belong to this world.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
belong to this world. He goes further and he says, the boy reading the school story desires success and is unhappy when the book is over because he can't get it. But the boy reading the fairy tale desires and is happy in the very fact that he is desiring. And I can watch Up and just be happy in the very
Desire,
fact
yeah.
of watching something that I'm longing for deeply inside.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
He says, for in his mind has not been concentrated on himself as it often is in the more realistic story. So I just really like that part of that story. I
Yeah.
also like the beginning montage. I rewatched it
Of
recently.
course.
Oh man.
And when she loses the baby,
Yeah.
I knew it was coming,
Yeah,
and then
and
my
it still-
jaw still dropped.
Yeah.
I was like, "Wow, this hurts."
Yeah.
But I think kids need to see that.
Yeah.
And so we were
Yeah.
talking about that before. We live in such a broken world. We can't shelter them from evil.
Yeah.
But as long as there are the knights and the princes and the heroes of the story that come and save the day, they know that they win. That I think of some of the kids that we work with. We were out at Family Dollar, and there was so much evil in this store. Like we can't shelter them from darkness as long as they know that there is light, that they are light, and that there is light that pushes that darkness back.
Yeah.
That is the healthiest way to tell them.
That's
the story.
exactly why, because Walt Disney wasn't saying like give them a happy ending because it'll make them happy or because that's how life is. It's because in children, it's important to inspire hope,
Yeah.
to instill
Yeah.
hope in them. And we need to show them through stories that even on our darkest days, there's still things worth fighting for and there's still things worth hoping in.
I think, and that's the good side of the fairy tale romance.
Yes.
That there is so much hope, that this is such a beautiful thing, and the world is trying to tell you because of our trauma and the things we come from broken homes, that we'll need those stories to reimagine what love is like.
Yeah.
I think a really beautiful scene in that movie that shows that is right after the scene where she's burying her face in her hands in the doctor's office, and then he sees her outside just by herself on the chair, like her eyes are closed and she's just drowning in sorrow. But he comes up behind her and he reminds her of the other things, the dreams that she had, and that's the turning point, and that's the hope.
Yeah.
Beating the sorrow, like, we lost this, we're not going to have this, but it's not the end.
Right.
It's not the end of joy. It's not the end of us.
Yeah.
Like, we are still together, and we can still live this life.
I love that.
And love each other.
And so then to get back to the story of Up, so it is about grief. It's about overcoming grief. I think it's really cool that at the very end, she's like, go live a new adventure. And all of a sudden he finds himself on this blimp with his kid and this dog. And like, it's ridiculous, but you don't realize that in the midst of our sorrow, there's so much still in front of us. That is really beautiful. So there is a good story there, but just the idea of this inner longing coming out through this film, more so than any other, for me at least, I found most fascinating with Up.
Yeah.
What do you think of the image of at the end where he sees the house and the balloons just fall into the clouds?
It's not like when it goes up into the clouds.
But,
It's just not-
yeah, that's why I want to know what you think of that. What does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me? I'm having trouble thinking.
Well, that sort of goes with the question I was wondering, was that his initial dream, beautiful picture that you have of house, balloons, all the colors rising into the sky, new adventure. At the end, it ends with the house going into the bottom, and he chooses to save the little boy Russell instead with his relationship with him.
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes back to what I was saying, is that life is still good. Like, there's still so much good here that we're not in heaven yet, and we can still experience parts of heaven here. And so we can let that go for now and hang out with the Russells and the Dougs.
Make me cry, bro.
And the Dougs and the Kevins and get some Ellie badges and just still keep going.
Yeah.
I love how it.
We can't quit. We can't quit.
Yeah.
So there's two sides to it.
I love how the house actually does end up on Paradise Falls.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah. Joe's having a
This
moment.
old guy is carrying this old house with a hose. Like, none of it. I'm watching this. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
It was crazy though, because whenever he would look over to Paradise Falls, I would be like, what? How far is he now?
He's
Like,
back at the starting point.
But like, he's always looking over there, and I felt like the longing to make it. He's like, can we please go back for the break? Can we do this? I'm like, yeah, but how much time does he have? And he's like looking over there, and like, I felt it when Charles Muntz throws the fire under his house to go capture the bird. I'm like, no. I said out loud, no, because I didn't remember that part. I was just like, you gotta be kidding! No, the house. And the little kid's like, you gave her away. And I'm like, the house.
And that's exactly what he said.
Yeah. Man.
So, yeah, so this is good. So, thank you, Nick. That was very beautiful. Up is a great one.
You're welcome.
Great movie. I think these were all great picks. I liked all your picks, guys.
For sure, yeah.
And two of your guys' picks are in my top 10 ranking later.
you did 10.
But let's just throw it out there. You could just throw it out and share why. Not everybody has to go, but if you want to go for these next few rounds, go ahead. Are there any Disney or Pixar films that you kind of have like mixed feelings about or negative feelings about? So, like, for example, I told you guys when I rewatched a lot of these movies this past few weeks, I changed my views on some of them. So I'm going to tell you one that I changed drastically on what I thought of. Oh. So I, as a very artsy, music, experimental, like creative type of person, I've always loved Fantasia.
Oh,
What made you stop liking it?
Man.
So there was something that happened this last time I was watching it. And I've seen Fantasia many times. And I've even, Addie, God bless my child, Addie can watch the entire Fantasia movie in one sitting.
Really? Because
Yes.
I
Aren't
know
there-
it's pretty.
It's 2 hours.
Yeah.
But it's a movie with no words.
And it's
Aren't
just
there two
music.
different ones?
It's just music.
There's one Fantasia, right? There's not two
There's
different
two.
ones.
There are
Yeah.
two.
So are you talking about the older one or
the
the newer
original.
one? Okay.
So Addie and I watched it together, and Addie, we had a beautiful time watching it. Like, Addie and I had lots of great conversations because we just talked about life. We're just
That's
sitting
precious.
there, and Addie's like talking to me about, like, we're watching the hippo alligator scene, and she's telling me how she wants to learn ballet. She's like, "Can I do ballet when I turn 6?" You know,
I want to talk about life with that.
You know, and we're talking about the dinosaur scene. She wants to know, like,
I love that
what
bit.
happened to the dinosaurs? Like, why did this happen? And so we're just talking about life, and it's really beautiful. And we even in the last scene with the Night at Ball Mountain and Satan in the scene and stuff.
Yeah.
That was a hard conversation to have. Is like, what's Satan doing to those people? Well, he's bringing them back from the dead so he could torture them again. And
Gotta be real with it.
And then he's like, why is he going away when they're carrying the lights? I'm like, well, you know, so it's beautiful,
Yeah.
like beautiful conversations. But this is there was something bugging me as I was watching it, and I couldn't figure it out. So I actually called my brother, and I said, I just rewatched Fantasia, and I didn't like it as much as normal. And I don't know why. And I started talking and getting my thoughts. I'm like, what do you think? Are you seeing something?
Yeah.
Because my brother's like one of those people who can just listen and he could put his finger right on it. And he said, like, this is some of the greatest music ever composed of. And in our comic book, in our Marvel episode, when I talk about comic books, I talk about my favorite mediums.
Uh-huh.
And music is my other favorite medium of art. And the reason why I love music so much is because you can close your eyes and your imagination can create whatever images go with that song. And you can live in the song can produce a world inside your mind.
Yes, yeah.
And Claudia, you're a musician.
Yeah.
So whether you're playing
are?
music or listening to music, that's the beauty of music. And he told me, as we were talking about it, he said, like, Fantasia is telling you what to think when you're listening to music. And I said, that's the problem. I said, that's it right there. It is putting something in my head that does not go there and is not meant to go there. The
Because-
composers did not intend for that to go there, nor did the medium of music meant to produce that. Because there is music that is created to go with film, like score or like the songs in the Disney songs. This music was not intended for that. It was intended for you to close your eyes and to take you somewhere. And he's like, when you listen to those songs, that's what you see now. And he said that's the problem you have with it. Because you know deep down as a musician, you know that's not how music operates. And I said, and that's why maybe people struggled with that movie so much. So yeah, that's what changed, is because I realized that takes away. I have the Fantasia soundtrack deluxe remastered, and I put it on, and it's beautiful. But being
Deluxe
told-
and remastered?
but- yeah, yes, deluxe edition, and it's remastered. But because the music is amazing. But yeah, I realized that, like, I don't want to be told what to think when I listen to music. That's not made for that.
No, I think that's a great point. I think definitely as a musician, you have this really cool connection with music that I talk to friends that don't play instruments and they don't listen to music the same way. So that makes sense that would be just really hard or different.
And I can admire the technical stuff and all that it brings and the way, I mean, it's beautiful animation and I can admire all that. But in terms of like being a favorite of mine or being something really special to me, it kind of lost that. So
That's interesting.
it is, right?
Yeah, that's
it just goes to show that we can think differently about things that even meant a lot to us.
yeah.
Do you guys have anything like that that's changed? Your view has changed on it, or anything that you have mixed feelings about, or maybe just think is
Well, I say mixed feelings is with Incredibles 2.
okay?
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
it's okay. It's
Yeah,
just an okay.
I'm the same.
I would prefer it if we didn't get a sequel.
Yeah.
To be honest, I could do without it.
What was it about it that was mixed for you?
It just felt like it felt as though it was something that just didn't need to be told. Like I didn't need
Like
to
it was
see this.
forced.
Not even just forced. It was like, okay, well, this adventure. It didn't. I guess it didn't live up to the hype.
It wasn't the story
Yeah.
you needed.
Yeah. Pretty much. I just,
Yeah.
it didn't live up to the hype. It's like, okay, we're making Incredibles 2, but this just Incredibles 2 is a villain that is like a discount rehash of the last villain.
Wait, who was the villain in
The
Incredibles 2?
screen,
The
Exactly.
Screenslaver.
Yeah, Screenslaver.
Yeah.
And she
Well,
exactly,
a lot of people
Yeah,
were
that
saying
makes
with
me cringe.
Incredibles
Yeah.
too, like, oh, doesn't it make Elastigirl such a strong female character? I'm like, did you
She
watch
was-
the first
one,
movie?
bro.
already was.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah,
just-
she's the boss mom.
She was
and
amazing
a superhero.
in the first
She was
movie.
holding the family
She
together.
was throwing hands.
Literally.
Mhm. Guts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
With,
Incredibles 2
Yeah.
for you?
Just pretty much that. Just didn't. It wasn't necessary to me.
Okay, yeah. Anybody else have a film or?
Yeah, this might make Joseph upset. It actually made me upset.
Please go ahead.
It's not that I thought this movie was bad. It's just I held it up really high, and then now it's just kind of a little high. And that would be The Incredibles 1.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's not that like I
I'm a
didn't
fighting.
like it.
Guts.
And I think, and I will say, maybe it was because I was a little I was trying to watch it while doing other things. I was still invested, but it was good, but it was just good. And I think I missed some of the themes. Maybe I didn't see them because I remembering Incredibles.
Yeah.
I loved it. I'm like, I love, and honestly, I still do
Fantastic
really love
Four and Watchmen for
I was
kids.
just gonna
I
say
really like
it's
the-
literally just the best version of Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing is, I liked the realism of the bad guy grunts that are not just you hit them once and they're done. Like they almost died a lot.
Right. There's a high body count in that movie.
Yes.
High body
like
Very
count.
high.
Mulan too. Yeah.
Yeah, Syndrome gets blenderized. It's
I
crazy.
I still like when I see that part. I'm like,
Yeah.
Ooh.
when that happens.
Yeah.
Or just that montage of all the heroes dying.
Yeah, that was really sad.
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
I almost want to take mine back. It's,
no.
no, I know. I'm gonna
You're
double
the
down.
first
I
one.
think it's
So-
because I had it up where Wally is, and now it's just down.
That's
little.
understandable because
So
things
it's-
can change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
my
me-
opinions are all still right.
For
and
me-
I think the good movies are good movies. I'm
see,
still never wrong.
For me,
about
when
what
I
like.
rewatched Incredibles last week, when I rewatched it, it hit harder for me. Like I could fully see that, like now clearer. Like Mr. Incredible, that struggle. Like you love your family, but you have this thing that you weren't able to do before that you miss and you want to get back to. And like I'm like that could happen to me. Just like some of the like The Incredibles, because okay, we haven't talked about this yet, but Disney hates moms.
Moms.
Oh yeah, they kill
Wait.
them all.
Yes.
They kill them all for like.
Dads get off a little better in Disney movies, but moms,
Well, you have the evil stepmom in Cinderella.
moms are either the villain or they're absent from their lives.
Not in Treasure Planet.
Yeah, not in
Okay,
Treasure Planet.
okay,
She's
but-
actually there in the main support for the boys. So
Okay,
that's just
but for the most
top
part,
tier already.
They're like
irrelevant.
Tori and I had this conversation. We were watching Incredibles. Is like, how many movies have a good mom? Like someone who's just a good parent. And like that's what I love about The Incredibles is like, yes, it shows the dysfunctions of the family, but ultimately they're trying to be good parents. And like as a parent, I appreciate that balance of shown there. And I know Tori as a mom appreciates that in that movie. Because a lot of the times the parents in Disney movies are terrible.
Yeah.
They're either terrible or they're non-existent. And I know that's true for life, but we need to have like
Good
at
parents.
least some
Yeah.
decent parents. So
Oh yeah, well, Lion King had a really good mom in Lion King.
Yeah.
She was
Yes,
not really
that's
active,
one of the
but she was a good
exceptions.
mom.
Scar.
that's
Yeah,
an exception.
bro, yeah,
Yes. I agree.
Having
So-
a moment, I'm thinking about all the movies that moms are either absent or killed, and that's very true. Like Bambi, the mom is killed. Mulan, she's pretty passive. Cinderella, evil stepmom, mama died.
Sleeping Beauty, they ship their daughter off to go live with fairies for
Yeah,
16
she's gone.
years.
High key.
I'm like, are you kidding me? She doesn't even know who her parents, and her parents are right there.
Oh, Tangled too.
Yep.
No, they're
Well,
Tangled,
Tangled's
they couldn't help
different.
it.
She gets kidnapped. Like
Yeah.
the parents just don't know.
Oh,
because
that's right. That's not a real mom. My
Yeah.
bad. I forgot.
yeah, Mother Gothel.
She still
which I think is
sucks.
one of the best
Mother
Disney
knows
villains, though.
best.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Yeah.
like the way that
She's
movie
horrible.
explores abuse. But yeah. So any I don't know, anyone else like got a film you've kind of changed your opinions on or anything before we get to overrated, underrated?
I have a solid opinion on not liking the original Alice in Wonderland.
Ooh, I'd love to hear why.
As a kid, it terrified me as a kid. That and Wizard of Oz just
You and Tori need to be friends.
Yeah.
She hates those films too.
completely just wrecked me as a kid. Could not watch them. Had nightmares all the time.
Don't you watch Harry Potter?
Love Harry Potter.
Okay.
What about those scared you? Go into that.
Yeah.
So Alice in Wonderland, the stereotypical, she falls down the hole, this like psychedelic world that she's
The,
going into.
the animation is great in that movie.
It was
holds
the
up
animation
so
was
well.
great, and I love the tea party scene, like
Yeah.
the chaos in that, but the fun and like whimsicalness. But yeah, her falling down the hole was just terrifying. And then the Wizard of Oz, something about the yellow brick road was just wrong.
What those worlds have in common is they're worlds that look very whimsical, but they're very cruel on the inside. That's what both those stories are about, is the cruelty within, you know? And in Alice in Wonderland, you have the queen. Oh, the queen's going to help me. No, the queen is terrible.
Oh, she's
There's a lot of good commentary in Alice in Wonderland that I like, and there's a lot of good writing, like technical writing in there. But yeah, I understand just being married to someone who can't stand Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
I understand where that comes from. So you guys want to go to overrated, underrated?
Yeah, let's go to
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, so
So Treasure Planet.
hey, so let's talk about Bruno. No.
See, they enchant that movie, so you keep singing the song.
I like a song.
Chloe
I like
shaking her
Bruno.
head.
I like Bruno. The Bruno song, it's catchy. But that entire movie, people were like, "Oh,
That's the
it's
worst
such a good." Bro, don't disrespect the Bruno song.
Don't disrespect
All right.
Bruno.
But that movie, the movie's message is, to me, how I perceived it as: you're not special unless you have a talent or unless you have a gift. There's nothing special about you if you don't have it. Let me explain why.
Take the mic.
Let me explain
Okay.
why.
I'm just gonna
This family,
get the popcorn.
So this family has powers, and this entire city surrounding this family can't do anything and
Yeah.
depend on that family to do everything. Once they start losing their powers, it's like, oh, my identity are tied to this power, and I don't have any other identity besides that. And the grandma enforces that. Afterwards, when they lose their powers and the days say blah 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 blah, they get their powers back. And the one that didn't have powers to begin with didn't even get powers as well.
Whoa. wait,
Yeah, but that's the whole
Yeah,
point.
no, and she.
Wait, that just
That's the
spoiled
whole
me.
point.
But if they really wanted to show that powers don't matter, no one should have got powers. Then they should have just been like, okay, the whole village worked together, and you can do other things without powers. But giving them powers reinforces it doesn't matter if you do have power or if you don't have powers. It only matters to the people that do have powers, and those people are in charge of the
I can't.
village. So
Yeah, no one's gonna want to watch a movie where no one has any powers and the village works all well together.
But that's
not gonna sell any tickets.
But
in the
yeah,
movie
but
theater.
the end of the movie, I'm talking about the end of the movie should have been. What's up? Don't you think Encanto is overrated? Because at the
Say
end,
no.
it's I was gonna say
Come
it's
over
Satan.
here, sweetie. What do you
Autumn,
think?
do you like Encanto?
You like Encanto? Yeah.
Yeah.
But why though?
All right, we can move on actually, because that's all.
Yeah. So that just means Joe's wrong.
Yeah. But no, what's it called? I just it doesn't show a very healthy family because even at the end, there's no real reconciliation between the whole family. Yeah,
Claudia's
the grandma-
got something.
Yeah, I completely disagree
Really?
with everything that you're saying.
Listen, the grandma may have said,
Congratulations.
"Oh, I'm sorry."
Everything you just said was wrong.
The grandma may have said, "I'm sorry that I treated you guys harshly and stuff like that." But the whole family did not stick up for for the person. They didn't stick up for each other.
No, because they didn't understand that they needed to. They were all like, "Oh, Maribel doesn't have powers." Like they pitied her, and that was really sad. But no, the anticlimactic end when she gets the knob and the house is rebuilt and everything's great, and she puts the knob in and nothing happens. Like she doesn't get a power. Like that's the beautiful part, is that she doesn't have powers, but she's a part of a family, and everyone was there to witness that.
But
So
everyone else got their powers
It was
back,
a
though?
The
complete,
house
like,
isn't like the
restoration.
house is her power. Like
Yeah, because she
yeah.
keeps the family together.
yeah, that's what I took away from it.
And witchcraft.
And it was like reconciliation from the original scene when the house had crumbled and she didn't have a ceremony because her ceremony went to shams because she didn't get a power or a door. And then at the end, she got this whole ceremony with just her family, and it was really beautiful.
Because, I get what you're saying, Joe, but you could take that idea that you're saying and you could even apply that to something like The Incredibles, because the boy who didn't have any powers actually becomes the villain and causes, So it's
Yeah.
like there is this subtle message in The Incredibles, like the incredible people are the ones with powers, and those who don't either can't save themselves or turn into the villain. It's complicated, and my relationship with Encanto is complicated because I don't know how I feel about it. And I've seen it several times. I think the songs are pretty good, but That's a tough one for me because there's something about that movie that does not click with me, or I don't engage with it, and I can't figure out what it is yet. I haven't figured it out.
It sort of feels
It's the family
forced.
dynamic.
Like it sort of feels like there's not a lot of substance, although there is a lot of substance in that movie. It just feels like generic in a way.
Yeah, I think I know what it is. I think it's coming to me now.
Okay.
There are some things that Disney makes that I don't think work best as films.
Okay.
Because, like, if you think of the medium of theater and Broadway, right?
Yeah.
Which is where they dabble in with these songs. The thing that's cool about a theatrical production is you get more time for dialogue with characters. There's more of an emphasis on that in theater and musicals. And Encanto is something that I feel like would be better if it was all fleshed out, like over like a 2.5 hour Broadway show with the songs and the sets and stuff. It could make a really cool play, but I feel like there's a lot of things with the characters that aren't developed well.
I still have to say that this family is horrible. They kicked the uncle out. One of the kids knew that the
Yeah.
uncle was still living in the house and said nothing for years.
Yeah, she did.
They
say
had
nothing.
Maribel live in a room just because she didn't have a power, and she had to share a room with each person or each child until that child got a room. That family's trashed, and they did not stick up for each other, and they took a family photo without her. The family's trash. Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, the family sort of sucks, but they
The
couldn't
family's
help
trash.
it because the grandma was hurt.
Yeah.
And the grandma was like
Trauma,
the key
huh?
figure. Yeah, it all goes back to trauma and just
And
childhood
goes back
wounds.
to how power and authority can can overshadow the trauma.
And it's always a
And they
simple
got
and
their powers
powerful
back.
solution of that. You just got to forgive
So-
and love and choose to love someone.
So
instead of carrying bitterness.
besides
Did they
Encanto,
love?
what are some other ones you guys have? Overrated.
Well, Jason wanted to go.
Chicken Little. Even if it's at
Oh my
30%,
gosh.
it's still overrated. That is the last one on the list.
Agreed. 30%.
That's all I got. I'm going to kick Chicken Little even when it's down.
He said even though it's a 33,
Chicken
still
Little might be
overrated.
the worst Disney movie.
You are the
That's
village
fair.
that
one
does
of the
not
worst
believe
movies
in
I've
him.
ever seen.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's
Jason,
pretty weird.
We're his two weird friends.
Yeah.
Jason, did you have one? Overrated?
There's overrated.
Yeah.
I don't think I've thought about that one completely yet.
Because
can
I could
say-
talk about how the Pixar formula is overrated because it's all the same movie.
So you're supposed to pick one movie?
No, I want to hear
I will
about
pick
that.
one movie.
Yeah, he's picking for you.
Yeah, I am
That's a
picking
good
one
point.
movie because almost all Pixar movies essentially have the same formula.
Well, that's just like
let's give some
like a
inanimate
Marvel formula.
thing or non-human thing, and let's have them get lost with a buddy and try to find their way home.
No Way Home.
yeah.
That's every Pixar movie, and I roll my eyes. I'm like, ugh, they got to find their way.
Was
gotta-
Aladdin like that?
They got to find.
Aladdin's
Aladdin's not
crazy.
Pixar.
Oh, Pixar. Oh.
But now they're besties, so it sort of is now.
Up's not trying to go home.
Well, yeah, up does something. Well, up does something cool with that, you know, and that's why I think there's a few Pixar, like Wall-E does the formula great. Ratatouille does not do the formula at all, which I love.
Remy
Ratatouille
gets lost.
He gets lost, but that's the thing is he does not. It's not
then
a let's go
and then
back
he gets
home.
found.
He brings home
Ratatouille
to him.
actually.
He brings home to him. It's
Yeah, and it's different. It's a subversion and a twist on that formula, which I
Ooh,
like.
good word.
Incredibles has a piece of the movie that's like that, but it's not the whole movie. So there's like my favorite Pixar movies, which it seems like, you know, obvious what they are now because I keep referencing them. But most of them, they're just the same thing. But my overrated Disney movie is Frozen
Yeah.
because
Wait,
I
the first or second?
both, but
Okay.
both. But I mean, like I have to watch those movies so much having two daughters, and I love the value of sisterhood and stuff. And the things we said earlier, I stand by. What you guys said was great. My problem with with Frozen is Elsa, the character of Elsa. And it's not even how Elsa starts, because obviously she has terrible parents. That's terrible parents in that movie.
They
Let's
whoa,
lock-
they died.
Yeah.
no,
They
no.
could- they died
Before they died, they're terrible.
bad.
They're despicable people. Let's lock our daughter in a room, isolate her from society.
Isolate her.
Yes, pun intended. Terrible, absolutely terrible. No, what parent would?
Let's erase our other daughter's memories of the snow events.
Oh,
with
there's
these
just some stuff
weird
like as
troll
a parent,
creatures.
it just sits so wrong with me. But the big
pretty
thing
funny.
about Elsa is Elsa is a character it's based on the Snow Queen story. It's just a real fairy tale. Elsa is supposed to be the villain within that fairy tale.
Yeah, they changed it.
And in the production process, she was meant to be the villain. The problem was that when the songwriter wrote Let It Go, the song was so catchy that they're like, we can't give this song to a villain.
Why?
So they completely reworked her whole story.
Villains have like the best
make
songs.
her not a villain. And that's where this whole twist with Hans came in. That all came later in the development. But my problem is the idea of Let It Go. The idea of it. It's not just a song that's annoying, but it's this idea that I don't have to take responsibility. It's this idea that because if Elsa was running away from everybody out of her hurt and trauma and all that, and in the movie, if the movie told me that this is a moment we need to grieve and all that, no, but the movie is telling you the opposite. It is telling you that by Elsa running away from her problems, not dealing with the situation, that she is better off without it. I have a huge problem with that message, especially for young people. Because, and you know, when we talk about Studio Ghibli movies one day, like Hayao Miyazaki from Studio Ghibli talks about this with Frozen. He says that Frozen is a movie that's just all about like how awesome you are. It's not about like, let's try to grow and learn and be better. Like Elsa doesn't even have any agency in the movie because when she goes back to Arendelle, she's brought back there against her will. So like, she doesn't go back because she cares about Anna. She goes back there because she's forced to. Like, the movie is telling you that Elsa is better off without all this, and Frozen 2 confirms that story. And I know she has trauma and I know she's hurt, but she doesn't actually work through it. She just masks it all.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And the way like And Anna, I like Anna. Anna's a great character. I think she seriously gets overshadowed in that movie. The movie should have been about her. Yeah, it's not like Lion King where there's trauma and the character. Like Lion King's a great example of a story about trauma where Simba has to learn to deal with it, to heal from it, and then to go make changes on it. Elsa doesn't have any journey, any arc like that. Yeah, the love thaws a frozen heart and all that stuff, and some of it is okay, but I'm not saying Frozen's the worst movie, but the message is so muddled and incohesive and incompetent.
No, I was just saying it is funny that when you mentioned Lion King and how you learned that lesson, but the first lesson he did learn after his father died was, I mean, your father died, forget about it. Go eat some food. Go relax, go chill.
Because Timon and Pumbaa are the real villains of the Lion King. Trying to help you not deal with your trauma.
Just forget about it, bro.
Yeah. But of course,
It'd be like that sometimes.
It's a cold world, no blanket out there, bro. Just go.
But whereas Hakuna Matata, yeah, it has a whole song about it, but there's something about Hakuna Matata where when you're watching the movie, you know that's not
the right thing.
That's not right.
It's not the end all say all.
Yeah, you know it's for the moment, but Let It Go, I feel like it's different.
I feel like they kind of made a good point that it was bad when she started throwing ice at them and had a golem attack them. I don't know. I thought it made a pretty clear idea that, hey, yeah, that's great, but you're killing everybody by doing this.
Yeah.
But I think, too, there's like a really cool... The sister dynamic really shines in that because Elsa, in and of her character, if it was just Elsa and no one else, yes, that is better for Elsa to be away
I think
from
Elsa's
people.
a pretty terrible sister.
Well, she's a horrible sister. But then you have Anna, who's this like underdog sister.
Yeah, she saves the movie.
Yeah, she really does save the movie. And she saves Elsa and brings her back into
But I don't
the
think
world.
Elsa should be a role model for children. I think that's my big issue.
She needs to work through some stuff first.
I think Elsa is not a good role model. Yeah, and then there's this whole idea with Anna of like, oh, I don't need a strong man. But then she does.
I'm a strong, independent
It's weird.
woman. I don't need no man.
Okay, anyone else have an overrated movie before we do underrated?
Let me see on my list. Hang on.
An overrated?
High School
Overrated.
Musical.
Don't ever.
We're doing animation,
It's
so
not that good.
it's got to be animated.
Oh, dang it.
Jungle Book.
The original?
The original.
Why?
Jungle Book is overrated.
Why? I like the Jungle Book.
I don't see the hype about it. I really don't see the hype about it. It's okay.
I just
That's
like
all I have to
I
say.
just like all the animal characters.
Fair. I'm fine.
I
with
mean,
that
Jungle
analysis.
Book is like a road trip movie for kids. That's kind of what I like about it. Is it's kind of like, all right, now we're going with the elephants, and there's a lot of Vietnam, like weird. There are some
in
non.
Nam.
Yeah, there is some.
Maybe that's
There
Brings
is
me
some
back too
weird
much.
subtext going on in the Jungle Book. But okay, what about underrated movies? So I'll start off with mine. Hercules.
Whoa, wait.
Underrated.
Oh, underrated. Okay, yeah.
I don't know how people don't have
Sleep on
Hercules,
Hercules?
as a
Yeah.
top tier Disney movie. The animation is stunning in Hercules. Some of the best animation Disney's ever done. All the songs are bangers. The idea of having gospel music go with like a story of a
Yes,
hero,
yes.
genius.
was
And
beautiful.
Hercules is basically Disney's Superman adaptation. Lot of similarities, and Rocky, a lot of Rocky stuff too in there.
Yeah.
But Hercules is it butchers Greek mythology and does not do great with Greek culture, but it's a fantastic story.
Yeah.
It really is. So that's my underrated, at least. I love Hercules. That's a top tier for me.
My underrated is Atlantis. Atlantis is such a good movie. Atlantis is a great movie.
Yeah.
The animation of it, the
Yes.
story of it, just the character, dude, that's a good movie.
That's why you like Treasure Planet too.
Treasure Planet
Is that
dope.
yours, Jason? Treasure Planet for underrated?
No, it's rated. Like I feel like I can defend that one better than Dinosaur. My defense. Dinosaur, bro.
Dinosaur's trash.
I'm sorry.
Wait, that's the good dinosaur?
No.
That's the same thing I said.
No, not good dinosaurs.
It's the Carnotaurs.
Yeah, it's.
Can I show you something?
My,
Oh
defe-
my
my defense
gosh.
of that movie is that I remember that I liked it.
Right? I remember liking it when I was growing up.
It was good.
Yeah.
And
Dinosaur.
the Carnotaurs were scary. Yeah, but I can't defend that one as well
Okay,
as...
do you guys see these god awful dinosaur Happy Meal toys?
Yeah, these.
They look great.
I used to have these as a no, not the bottom ones, the top with the heads.
See, Claudia
So-
loved the movie too.
So I had these
It was
as
a
a
good movie. They're
kid,
escaping
and I
extinction.
I had these
And
Happy
there's
Meal
a
toys as a kid, and I threw them in the
It's about
trash.
to get them killed.
These Happy Meal toys are worth hundreds of dollars now.
Really?
Yes, from
Really?
Dinosaur.
That makes sense. I agree with that.
But okay, so wait. So Treasure Planet, it's interesting though with Treasure Planet because Atlantis, Treasure Planet, Hercules, all those movies are like around the same era of
time,
Disney.
yeah.
I think
Where
Hercules was written by the same guys, right?
yes, it's Treasure Planet at least, yes. But I feel like that era of Disney, and Mulan's in that era too. I feel like a lot of those films get under the wayside.
You know what? I'll do Treasure Planet. That's easier to defend.
Yeah, I would say so.
So the technology used to film Treasure Planet was like ahead of its time,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of stopped doing it then because like after that movie. But it was the same. I couldn't tell you what the name of it was, but it's the same technology they used for the trees in Tarzan.
Okay.
where he's sliding on the trees
Oh,
and
yeah.
it looks like super realistic.
Yeah.
And they did that for the ship and for
Yeah.
John Silver's arm, and they interlaid it with the actual, the more traditional animation. But the thing is, every time you see any piece of that ship, it's that 3D animation that's being used. Anytime you see the ship at
Yeah.
all, and when you see John Silver's arm, and the thing is, it's not just that they did it at the same time, it's that it looks good
Yeah.
at the same time. The scenery is beautiful. They have this futuristic setting, but it's also Victorian. And I remember hearing that they wanted the ratio to be mostly Victorian to futuristic.
Yeah.
So it still feels like an old
Yeah, it's got style to
pirate
it.
story. Yes.
Yeah.
It's very stylized, and they have the broken family in this, but they don't like shun the importance of the father figure. And what was really interesting is so the main character, his father, pretty explicitly like
Left.
ups and leaves.
Yeah.
And he and his mom are in a not the greatest state, owning the inn, and it's kind of getting run down. And he is very clearly acting out, being rebellious, but also his adventurous spirit is in that.
Yeah.
And later in the movie, the antagonist becomes his father figure in a way, and he starts filling the role. And he even said, like, didn't your pappy ever tell you not to pick fights you couldn't win? And he's like, no.
And they
He's like,
they change each other throughout it too.
Yeah, that's good.
You
Good
guys sleep
storytelling.
on this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
The antagonist is pulled, the antagonist is pulled and defeated through this fatherly love that he starts to feel. He's torn between the treasure and then his place in Jim's life and Jim's place in his life.
Yeah.
And it's just a really cool movie that doesn't shy away from the terrors of space. I mean, there's a dude who literally gets sucked into a black hole and dies.
Yeah.
And other guy who just floats out into space by himself. It's horrifying, but a really cool movie. And again, it highlights the importance of a father figure and a mentor figure. And it doesn't just say, "Yep, that's how it is," and we hate dads. It's we
need them.
We need this, and we understand when it's absent.
Yeah. Nick and Claudia, how about you guys? Underrated.
I haven't seen the last probably 8 movies we've been talking about, but judging by the conversation, my underrated is Encanto, Frozen, and Frozen 2.
Wow.
Get out.
Get out.
I got no laughter. You don't put that in there. They didn't get any laughter.
Put it in there.
Yeah. Let everyone hear the silence.
I'm with
For real, I haven't seen any of these. So
So
what's
what movie that you've seen that is underrated?
But I think everything's pretty properly rated. I don't think anything's like standing out.
What about you, Claudia?
Underrated, I said. I mean, we talked about Up. I think I also put Emperor's New Groove on there.
Okay, yeah.
That's a
Pull the lever, crunk.
It's got some good
movie.
slapstick. It's almost more Looney Tunes than Disney at times.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Big character development in Cusco.
Yes, I agree.
That man is selfish.
Yeah, I related to
I wanted to reach in and hit him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to start wrapping up. So let's do our rankings real quick, and then we'll do... Jason loves rankings.
They're all good.
Let's do our rankings, and then we'll end with our meaningful story conversation, or kind of monologue, whatever we do at the end. So, anyone want to go first? Like, did you guys do a top 10, top 5, top 3? Collective Disney and Pixar, so you can mix them together. But anybody have a list they want to do, or...
I didn't know we were doing a list, so give me a second.
It's all good. I could do my list.
Yeah, do your list.
Okay. I can start. All right, so I do have honorable mentions, but if you want to see what those are, you got to go to my Letterboxd account, which is in the show notes, where you could see all my rankings for different things and reviews of things that I watch, if you care for that. So my number 10 is Tangled.
Okay.
Easily one of the best Disney princess stories.
Of all time.
Yes. Number 9, Ratatouille. And it's awesome. It's very mature. Great story. Fun, too. Number 8, Mulan. Shout out to Claudia.
Yes.
Shout out to my wife as well, because that's her favorite Disney princess movie, too. Number 7, WALL-E. Shout out to Jason. Number 6, Pinocchio. It's archetypal storytelling at its finest. It's a wonderful story about what it means to be human. And if you watch Pinocchio alongside of me, I guarantee you'll at least appreciate it with my commentary. Number 5.
That's what I thought about
arrogant.
That's scary, honestly.
The only reason why I say it is because Tori and I did that, because Tori hated Pinocchio. And I said, you're going to sit down and watch it with me. And then by the time the movies got done, I said, what do you think of it? She's like, well, I don't like it, but I at least understand it and respect it, appreciate it now. Because there is so much that's being said in that movie that's incredibly profound and great for children. Number 5 is The Lion King. We didn't talk about that much today, but just masterpiece all around. Great story.
Yeah.
Number 4, Hercules, my underrated. Number 3, The Incredibles. Sorry, Jason.
I'm happy with that. That's okay.
Number 2, Aladdin.
Yeah.
And number 1, which I have not talked about yet on purpose, because I will talk about it with our meaningful story thing, Soul.
Ooh.
We'll get there.
Ah.
All right, so that's mine. My top 10. Who wants to go next?
I saw Nick. He looked like he was ready.
I'm not. I'll go. I think I'll go Lion King at the top, and then somewhere below that, WALL-E and Up and The Incredibles, and then all the way at the bottom, Chicken Little.
Oh my!
And I think that's my list.
Let's go.
That's solid.
Let's go. All right, Claudia.
Okay, so I'm gonna go bottom up. Bottom is these are all my favorites in ranking.
Yeah, so
Of,
like, is this like a top 10 or
this
top?
This is top 7.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
an
I only had
odd
time for
number.
7 in the past minute.
Sounds good.
Find another
It's
one.
got
All right, so
yeah,
at the bottom we have Lilo and Stitch because it's a beautiful, wholesome restoration.
Lilo and Stitch is good.
Above that, I have Peter Pan, Lion King, Moana. Going up is Inside Out. Second, so penultimate to the top is Pocahontas, and then at the top is Mulan.
We didn't talk about Inside Out. That's interesting.
No, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's a
Very
good one.
phenomenal.
All right, Joe.
So I'll do bottom from the top, bottom to top as well. So it's at the bottom, but it's not really at the bottom. So The Brave Little Toaster, Mulan, Chicken Little, Tangled, Emperor's New Groove, and Aladdin.
I was
Bro,
reading
okay.
something for real. You put
Okay,
that on
bro,
your
when I
list?
tell you, okay, let me tell you why I love Chicken Little so much.
Please do.
Yeah, okay.
You need to.
Okay, so I related so much with the Chicken Little character.
The sky is falling.
But it's the father and son aspect. The father. Come on, y'all. Let me get up in this, man.
Is it because you play too much?
gosh,
and no one believes.
When you first said the father and son relationship, I was like, no.
No, but here's a father. Here's a father whose wife died and doesn't really know how to connect to his son, and his son is trying so hard to do things to gain his father's love and to gain his father's respect. But even throughout it. He just his father is still just getting disappointed in him until his father learns that I need to trust my son and support my son, even if I don't think that this is right, or I don't think that this or what is going on is actually going on. I need to trust my son and I need to love my son throughout it. I don't care, y'all. Y'all sleep on that, but it gets me each time and I'm in tears, okay? Man, and then when he looks up, he was like, "Dad, you have to trust me." He's like, "I do trust you, son." You know what?
Okay,
Whatever,
that part was
y'all.
really sweet,
It's-
actually.
it's-
That
oh my
1
gosh.
2 second scene
Whatever.
was the best.
Whatever.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Oddly, it's me that's with you.
right?
Yeah, because we're not. All right, Jason. Last but not least, Mr. Rankings himself.
Okay, so I'm gonna go from the top to the rest.
Okay.
And top 10, I think. I'm just gonna start naming everything I like till I'm out of numbers.
Okay, great.
So at the top we've got Wall-E. We have Up. We have Ratatouille. We have Treasure Planet. How many is that?
Works sometimes.
Ratatouille's in
That's
mine
like
too. I forgot.
4.
And then, so those are at the top, unless there's one I'm forgetting. And then after that, I'm just gonna name them off. Big Hero 6
Oh.
That made me cry like a baby.
it was a good one. I did like Lilo and Stitch. What was another one? I don't know if I want to put Moana in here yet, but I can't think of the other one. Incredibles is in there. Man, forget it. Moana's in there now. I can't remember the others.
Oh, and a solid movie.
It is good. Oh, Wreck-It Ralph. I did like Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that one.
And Luca.
Luca's new,
Luca-
but good.
Luca's
Good.
Luca's good.
Oh, I don't know if I'm out, but I gotta put Soul in. I did like Soul.
That's 11. You have to make 12 now.
Oh, 12? All right, Cars 2. That was a joke.
Okay, that better be.
Oh, wait, whoa. Zootopia was amazing.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that.
The
one.
sloth
Huge
scene.
twist. The sloth scene is hilarious.
The sloth.
Flash, 100-yard dash. What's up?
Okay, moving on. Thank you, Jason. So we like
Let's
to
take that
end.
one out.
We like to end these Why We Love episodes talking about how Pixar and Disney inspire us to live a meaningful story. Because as we talk about on this podcast all the time, if we look at our lives like a story, how does that help us to better be intentional about the way that we're living, and how do we engage ourselves better and our relationships and the world around us with that in mind? And the word meaning is key for me because talking about soul, which I have not talked about yet. And Joe, forgive me, I'm sure you get this all the time.
That I look like the character? Yes.
And your name is literally Joe.
Yeah. I've been.
I remember we watched that. I immediately thought of you as like, this is going to be your contact.
Joseph.
As soon as that movie came out, people were texting me left and right. You watch Soul, man? You look like the person from Soul. Thanks, guys.
But hey, take it as a compliment. Jamie Foxx is great in that movie.
With that
But
big old head.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That's why they...
There's something about the Pixar aesthetic that I've never loved. I just don't like the aesthetic of it. Maybe it's too clean looking or too.
It is.
I
It's very
don't know.
clean.
I don't like it. But anyways, Soul.
I didn't believe it, but then I looked it up. This is Joe.
I wish I had a hat.
Oh my
We should get Joe a hat.
Fedora? Yeah.
A fedora. Okay.
Halloween costume.
So
Your kids could be the little blue things.
Oh, that's good.
The whole classroom.
The whole
the whole,
The whole classroom could be the little blue guys.
you could be their mentor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I love about Soul, and here's how it helps me live a meaningful story. So despite all the Disney films and Pixar films I've watched as a child and in my lifetime, when I watched Soul on Christmas Day 2020, I had a reaction and an experience with that film that I don't think I've ever had with another Disney or Pixar film. And that's a film that captured an existential crisis that I think a lot of us experience in life. Because the reason why I'm in this work of narrative practices and all things narrative is because I believe that there are people, many people, that are in a meaning crisis right now, where they are struggling to see the meaning of their existence. And they're taking their lives, they're just passing through life. And in narrative practices, we want people, or sorry, I shouldn't say what we want, but we're trying to encourage people to reauthor their lives towards something that's more meaningful to them, whatever that is, to kind of rediscover that spark. Because the movie talks about the spark. And I love this idea that the spark is not your purpose. That's one of the most insightful things I've ever heard told to a kid's film, because a lot of adults don't understand that. Because the spark is your spark. And there's one great thing I read about it where the spark is that which makes you human. Like if you watch the movie and you recognize that the spark is that thing that makes you human, you know, whether it's, oh, I like to play music, or, you know, oh, I like to paint, or whatever it is. But that doesn't mean that that's your purpose. Purpose, or I should say sense of purpose, is something that we can all have no matter where we're at in our lives. Even if I tomorrow got into a car accident and could never play drums again, that doesn't mean that I've lost my purpose. Purpose, the movie is about finding purpose in existence, finding it from the moments of talking to your friends in a barbershop to eating pizza with people, or with Ratatouille. Ratatouille is actually in the movie. I don't know if you saw that. There's a little cameo he makes where he's taking a piece of pizza. It's these little moments. I mean, the whole idea that he's seeing his life through somebody else's eyes is genius. And then the fact that he gets the gig, he gets the thing that he feels like he's always wanted. And these Disney and Pixar movies are at their best when they explore the difference between what we want and what we need. And what we think we want versus what we need. And when what we need becomes what we want, that's when a character has fully grown and developed. Joe thinks he's wanted this gig, and he gets it, and the jazz musician, she tells him like about the story, the parable about the fish swimming in the water and saying, where's the ocean? And realizing that they've been in the ocean all along, and Joe realizing that he's been in life all along and he's missed it. The moment when he watches his life and he's sad, like, because he realizes that this is all my life has been. I mean, I felt so many things watching this movie, and just this existential crisis that we have, and this idea of Joe, who's a classroom teacher.
Come on now.
And he has to learn to become a mentor. He has to learn to, and he actually grows to love, he learns to grow to love teaching, because he doesn't love teaching in the beginning of the movie.
Go ahead and preach it on.
And
preach my life.
Feels like, you know, because he didn't make it, he's throwing his life away, but he's not. He recognizes, he finds a sense of purpose in what he's doing with 22 and being a mentor. That moment when he's on the piano and he puts all these little objects in front of him and just stares at him and cries. Y'all, I've done that before. Like, I've legit looked at things in my life, and I've had these profound experiences where I've realized I missed something, and I've become emotional. I had an experience like that a few weeks ago. Like it's so real to life. It doesn't talk down to anybody in what it's trying to say about meaning and this idea that he, of going into the zone, and when he gets to the zone, he finds that 22 has become a lost soul. It's so great plays on words and has to go in there and help her. She lets him in, but he still has to confront the trauma that he helped cause with her. Ultimately, I'll end with this. It's ultimately just a movie about what a meaningful life can be. And a lot of people hate the ending of the movie because Joe, he's ready to die because Joe is a character that doesn't want to die and 22 is a character that doesn't want to live. And it's a great matching of those two. That's the thing is Joe learns to accept his mortality and make the most of his life because he's no longer trying to be an immortal great jazz musician. He's just trying to be Joe. And 22 learns that life is worth living. And that's a beautiful story. And when the abstraction of the universe, comes to Joe.
Multiple Jerrys.
The Jerry part was really funny.
And it shows Joe the portal back to Earth and lets Joe go back and says, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to live. And when I was watching that movie, I was like, please end the movie. Please end the movie. Please end the movie. And when the title came up, I cheered because I'm like, they're not going to do a stupid montage of his life getting all back together. Like they're just gonna treat you like an adult and just like it felt like a real film movie. Like I think it's the best made film of any of these from a filmmaking perspective. But it's so meaningful because it dares to ask the deepest questions that we're asking, and it asks it in a way that parents and children can wrestle through together. And so that's what I'm after in life, and so that's why Soul for me really, really resonates.
That's really beautiful.
So anyone else about how Pixar and Disney help you to live a meaningful story?
I can go. And I'll talk again about WALL-E, but I really can't say it. WALL-E.
You said it right earlier.
Yeah, you did say it right earlier. WALL-E.
So, WALL-E. WALL-E. So, that movie helps me live a meaningful story, and I really related to the themes that it was talking about, and a bit about that was also in Soul, where he's just enjoying. Well, 22 is enjoying just the senses of life, or something that are beautiful in and of itself. Like forget the spark, forget anything else. 22's spark was just being alive. And just enjoying the marvels. Do you
ever felt like sometimes you pass by those moments and you're always just trying to get to what you think is the big thing, but you're missing the other things which are the big thing?
I do feel like that sometimes, but I feel like I make it a pretty big part to enjoy those things. Yeah. Like I feel that when it comes time to slow down and just look around and be happy with just the things that I can discover that are new and be curious and look at what has been put there right in front of me. I feel like I do a pretty good job of that, and I take a lot of joy in it, and it's what has given me a lot of strength and a lot of patience.
That's why I started crying the other day in front of y'all. When you were that was one of those moments for me where I realized I will never have this again.
Yeah, wow.
And I was trying to pull like what you were saying. I was trying to take it in and not rush past it because I've been tempted to rush past it and just get to the next chapter.
When you rush past what you rush towards what you're supposed to do, you die early.
Yeah,
that's what was in WALL-E. Like everyone is dying quicker
that's what they have in
because
common.
They are just following directive and perishing. All the robots before him perished, but he still did what he was supposed to do, but he enjoyed life.
Wow.
He made discoveries. He was curious. He had fun.
Yeah.
Like joy and the stress of life will kill you very quickly. And studies show that a lot of disease and sicknesses we can have are psychosomatic. They are from just our mental state. If we get stressed, we get sick. But the more joy that we have, the more that we go and say that what I'm supposed to do right here, my job is important, but it's not the all.
Yeah.
It's love, it's joy, it's communing with each other. It's sharing the things that we love and that we're curious about.
Yeah.
It's dancing with other people in our lives. It's important.
It's beautiful.
And so that reminding me of that, and Soul reminding me of that, and Ratatouille reminding me of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's like, you're not a thief. Like a thief takes, a cook makes.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how humans are so much more because they don't just have or get, they create. And that's what we do. It's not just we have all these ingredients and we just shove them into our bodies as fuel, which that is saying. It's like we make art, we make music. It's not necessary. We don't need it, but we love it, and it's an expression of our love. And just let's make more out of what we have.
Yeah.
So that's what it reminds me of.
God, that's beautiful.
That's really good.
Anyone else?
I'll end on one last quote, and it says that when I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of being childish and the desire to be a man. And I think that's what the movies do. That we can really grow and learn these deep lessons from these children's stories, but we can also be children. Yeah. And I think especially in Up, where the old grumpy guy his life gets turned around by this little kid, Russell. And I think that's what our job has really blessed us with. Yeah. Specifically me. But that's what I get from the Disney movies.
Yeah.
For mine, I want to talk about the movie Brave. So I think best scene in that movie is when he's telling the story of how he lost his leg, and he's like, and with one eye or with one arm, and the kid, one of his like triplets, is mocking him. It's the best part. Anyway, okay. So there's a quote in the movie. Meredith is fighting with her mom, Eleanor, and she says to her mom, she's like, I want my freedom. And then and Eleanor says, she's quoted a lot. It's really good. And she says, but are you willing to pay the price your freedom will cost? And she says that to her daughter, and it's a really, really powerful quote because Meredith is just trapped in the confines of what she should be doing, and she really wants to do what she feels like her life is leading her to do. And her mom is not saying she can't, but she's saying, are you willing to pay the price for that? And so I think this movie specifically, this quote specifically, right now in my life is moving me to make a more meaningful story and doing the things that I believe that I should be doing despite the confines, quote unquote, that life has me in. And I'm inspired seeing that scene.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I would say mine is Tangled. And Flint is Flint Rider, right?
Flynn Rider.
Flynn Rider. I was thinking of Flint Lockwood.
But his real name's Eugene, yeah.
Yeah, so just the fact that he had this dream and he thought this was the dream that he wanted. This dream of, having his own little island where he can do whatever he wanted on this island. But learning that the dream that he wanted isn't the dream that he needs or the dream that he actually wants. This dream is to be loved, to be seen, to have someone in his life that cares about him as well. And honestly, I just think that's just really precious, and that he found someone that he could do that with, and that person showed him that you don't have to live life by yourself. You can live life with other folks. You can live life and enjoy the things with other people. Yeah, I just think that it's beautiful at the fact that he allowed himself to be changed and allowed his dream to be changed as well. So yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
The kids are restless.
Yeah.
I think that means it's time to wrap. Right. Autumn, do you have anything you want to say on the podcast? No?
No, yeah.
Any final thoughts, Autumn? Close us out. Okay, if you want to be on the podcast, say something.
Hey, Autumn, what's your favorite Disney movie?
Hi. Hi.
Anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Thank you for being on the All Things Narrative podcast, Autumn. All right, so we're going to wrap it there. Thank you guys so much for being on. Claudia, thank you for joining us for this discussion.
Yeah, thank
for
you
why
for
we love
having
Disney
me.
and Pixar animation. And you guys get a break next month. Next month, Ryan and I are going to talk about Lord of the Rings and Narnia. So that'll be a blast. So feel free to join us there. And these guys will be back. We'll be back for Why We Love in August on the 60th anniversary of a certain fictional character.
Oh,
if you've listened to the previous episodes, you just might know who that is. So,
Spider-Man. Is it?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Hey, please cut this out.
Spoiler.
Oh, was it a spoiler? Oh,
No, that's okay.
okay.
Now it is.
Oh, well.
But anyways, thank you so much for joining us for the All Things Narrative podcast. This is your friendly narrative practitioner, Derrick, signing off, saying thank you so much and take care.